In today's gaming news, Destiny's beta starts this summer, a slew of Nosgoth footage is released, and the NDA for The Elder Scrolls Online is lifted for select press. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is Force with your day's gaming news. First up today, Destiny is going to be entering beta sometime this summer. It was revealed during a recent Activision fourth quarter's earnings call that the game is planned to launch on September 9th of this year, with the beta scheduled for sometime this summer. No release window was given other than to say in the summer before September 9th, obviously, which is the game's release. Also during the call, Bobby Kotick came out and claimed that he believes Destiny will be one of the fastest selling new IPs in video game history. Now that's not incredibly far-fetched, but boy, that is quite a claim. As of this point, there is certainly a bit of hype around Destiny. I myself am very excited at the notion of Bungie producing a shooter with magic included in an MMO space. I mean, that's just an exciting idea to me. And the other thing to keep in mind is this game is releasing on 4 platforms. It's going to be both last gen and this gen Xbox and PlayStation consoles. It gives it a good opportunity to become a fast-selling IP, that backed by just all of Activision's money and the reputation of Bungie in making quality shooter games. So yeah, sure, I guess it's possible. It's way too early to tell. I'm not gonna make that claim. I'm not gonna say I agree with Bobby in stating that this will be the fastest-selling IP in video game history. But is it possible? Yeah, sure, anything's possible. Anything, it could start, I don't know, there could be a thunderstorm tomorrow. It's the middle of winter. It's very unlikely, but I guess it's possible. Actually, is that even possible? That may not be possible. Next up in news, we have a slew of footage for the upcoming game, Nosgoth. Now, Nosgoth is a multiplayer human versus vampire asymmetrical game. The game's developer, Psionic Studios, has released nearly an hour's worth of gameplay footage. There's basically several videos that are released showing some of the various multiplayer modes. The game, you know, sounds okay. It sounds interesting. I mean, there's really not much for me to go on right now. The footage looked all right. It's asymmetrical multiplayer, so there's, you know, humans and vampires. They've got different classes with different abilities, probably sort of a hard counter sort of system where one class is really, really great against this class but sucks against the other class. You know how that sort of thing works. The biggest bummer, of course, about this game since it was announced was the fact that it's just not another regular Legacy of Kain game. It's a Legacy of Kain game. It's set in the Legacy of Kain universe, and I've also been informed that this is probably being used as a barometer to see if people are interested in the Legacy of Kain franchise and they could potentially reboot the series. But I also think that this isn't the best way to gauge that, because people who loved Legacy of Kain aren't necessarily going to love a asymmetrical multiplayer game just because it's got Legacy of Kain skins, essentially. So I don't really know. It's kind of a tough call. I'll keep more of an eye on this game, and again, check out some of that gameplay footage if you are even slightly interested. And last up in news today, we've been talking about the NDA for The Elder Scrolls Online for the past couple of weeks now, and the fact that it's still in place had people very concerned. Well, the NDA has been lifted, but hold on, before you start posting footage, it is only lifted for select press and media. We've gotten a bunch of first impression videos coming out, as well as first impression articles from various large sites, and there's also videos coming out from some YouTubers as well. And I'm happy to announce that I am among those people who are able to post some footage. It's very restricted right now, but before I get into that conversation, I want to let you know how the response has been so far. So several articles, several videos, and it's been very mixed, to say the least. There have been some people who absolutely say that they loathe this experience, that the game is not deserving of a subscription fee, and they've got a long way to go if they think they can charge $15 a month consistently for the coming years. And then there's some people who say, yeah, I think the game's actually pretty good. I think it does this, this, and that well. Specifically, people are always mentioning the game's graphics, but come on, if we're only talking about the game's graphics, there's a problem with the game. Now, there have been in-betweens though. I've read a lot of articles that have said the game starts off terribly, and most of the articles completely slandering the game say it's because it just starts off terribly, but that it opens up over time. Now, based on my experience, because I have been given permission now to talk about this game. The game does open up, it gets better over time, but I also want to make this point. Time and time again, whenever we talk about MMOs, and people say that the early game sucks, it's boring, it's not fun, the rebuttal is always, the early game doesn't matter in MMOs, and it's only the end game that matters. And if you haven't played this game for hundreds of hours and reached the end game and done max level content, then you have no right to judge it. And I think, unfortunately, that shouldn't be the case. Now, I was one of those people for the longest time who said that. I said, you can't judge an MMO if you haven't reached the end game, because that's the only thing that matters. But the truth is, the first experience, the first impressions do matter, and it's very important to hook people early on, because if I'm playing a game, not even just myself, just a regular consumer, regular person who plays video games, if you play a game for 5 to 10 hours and you are having a boring ass time and no fun at all, what is the incentive to continue to play? The promise that it might get better at endgame after you sink in 60, 80, 100 hours? I don't think that's right, and I think that it's very important for developers of MMOs in particular to focus on that initial experience and make it as good as it can possibly be. Yes, because it's an MMO, we're going to be restricted either by gear or by a lack of skills or by the fact that MMOs typically have progression. And obviously when you're in the lower end of the progression scale, you don't have as much potential as you do on the higher end, but there's got to be ways to balance it. And I don't think we should settle for boring ass early games because games are just MMOs. I don't think that's reasonable. Again, I don't think I should have a terrible 5 to 10 hours at the potential promise of a better time later down the road. I mean, my time is strapped. Everyone, people have things to do, and we shouldn't have to sacrifice that and not enjoy an experience just because of the genre of game something is. But of course, that is just my opinion, and honestly, I'll say again, I've enjoyed some of the later stuff in the Elder Scrolls Online, but I do agree, early on, it's kind of okay. I'm not going to give an official review. I am going to give some first impressions. I will show some gameplay footage. Stay tuned for that throughout the course of this weekend and into the coming week. There will be some footage right here on the channel. That's going to do it for today's episode of the show, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to comment in the comment section below about any of the topics discussed here today. Once again, this has been Force, and you have just been force-fed. I mean, let's be honest here, any hotkey-based MMO, the first few hours will consist of you just pushing the number 1 a bunch of times, and I understand that, but the things surrounding it should try to be more entertaining. That's all I'm saying.